Kedvach Shvatov, we are up to Lamed Gimel Bet Aleph. We are learning Lila Nishmas Mindel Maria Bas Kalman Ruvain. We're at the top of Lamed Gimel Bet Aleph. We're actually in the middle of a Gemara, which talked about the fact that a person who steals, the punishment for stealing is locust, and the Gemara is in the midst of a whole long discussion about all different sins and the subsequent or connected punishments that they have. So the Gemara told us that this principle, that a person who steals, the punishment for stealing is locust. The pasuk says, the pasuk says you're going to be beaten with blast and with yirakon is like from the word yarak, like things which are moldy. Harbos kanosem echarmehem, in your gardens, in your vineyards, gazam, your fig trees and your olive trees will be eaten by gazam. So what is gazam? So we quote another pasuk which describes gazam clearly being locust. The pasuk says in Yoel, yesar gazam achla arba, that which the gazam left over the locust ate, v'yitzna arba achal yarak, yesar ha'arba achal yarak, that the locust left over the yelek ate, yesar yelek achal chasil, and that which the yelek left over the chasil ate. All different types of locust, and this is all taking place because of stealing. As it says, he looks to the right, or he grabs from the right, and he's still hungry. They have some food on the left, the person still hungry. Ish besar zro yochelu, a person eats the flesh of zro, his arm. The Gemara says, al tikre besar zro, don't read the flesh of the arm, el besar zaro, rather the flesh of one's children. There's going to be such poverty due to stealing that and the locust is going to have such an impact that the person is ultimately going to eat their own flesh. And again, as I think we mentioned the other week, this is something which took place in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, that there was terrible famines that people ultimately were eating their children. Atrocious, terrible. Okay, Bavon ina adin, for the sin of delaying judgment. Okay, so not only is there an importance to judge properly, but also to delay judgment is critical. You know, sometimes things get so incredibly delayed in different batei din. That's a real problem. Ivos hadin, inoi hadin, delaying judgment is an avera. Where a person has a problem, it's our obligation to solve the problem as soon as possible, not to wait. If ivos hadin is perverting the judgment, that is like messing around with the judgment. Vikilkal hadin, that's causing it to be corrupt, meaning a person is not careful with their din, with judgment, ubitul Torah or bitul Torah, cherev ubiza rava, sword and plundering increase in the world, v'dever v'tzoras ba, and pestilence and famine come, uvnei adam ochlin ve'ein sevein, people eat and they will not be satisfied. V'ochlin lachem mishkal, and they eat their food by weighing it. Now, what does it mean they eat their food by weighing it? So Rashi explains that what this means is that people, you had a bunch of people who had almost nothing, and they pooled their resources together so they can make a little bit of bread. The problem was the bread was so lousy that it fell apart, it crumbled. So instead of dividing it by slices, they had to divide it by weight, and that's what it means. They will eat their bread by weight. It says, I'll bring upon you a sword, which is avenging the bris. What is bris? Vein bris la Torah refers to the Torah. Shnemar, as it says in Labrisi Yom V'Layla, referring to the Torah, that there's a covenant, there's a bris both day and night. We have an obligation to learn not only just every day, but twice in the day. Every day and every night there should be Torah learning. And it says, B'shivri lachem, mati lechem b'afu eser nashim, when I break the staff of bread, that's a reference to having food. 10 will break your bread in one oven. And why is all this happening? That there's all this poverty, and the staff of bread is not there. Why? Yan mishpati ma'asu, because they were disgusted by my mishpat, by judgment. So we see a person who that a society which is delaying judgment, which is corrupting judgment, which is perverting judgment, that such a society suffers from hunger. Okay, ba'avon shvua shav, a person swearing falsely, ushvuas sheker, or a false oath. The difference between shav is like no purpose. If I were to make a shvua that this thing in front of me is a phone, that's meaningless. Why would I make such an oath? It's so obvious. A false one is if I say the thing in front of me that's recording me right now is a tape recorder, right? That's false. B'chil Hashem, a desecration of Hashem's name. B'chil Shabbos, and desecrating Shabbos. Chaya ra'a rava. The population, the chaya ra, like wild animals, increase in one city. Uvehema kala, and the cattle, which a person is using for sustenance, they die. Uvnei adam ismatin, and people decrease. V'adrachim mishtovim, and the highways become desecrated. The connection between all these things of a shavua and Chil Hashem and Chil Shabbos. So we know that Shabbos is a form of a shavua. We know that we say Kiddush. The reason that we're supposed to, that according to many, you stand Friday night Kiddush is because we're making edus, where it's a testimony, it's a shavua. I'm testifying to the fact that Hashem is the one who created the world. And what does that do with Chil Hashem? So there's a beautiful vart by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, when it says Lo sisa Hashem l'kech l'Hashav, you shouldn't bear witness using you shouldn't use God's name in vain. But the way that the Lubavitcher Rebbe explains this is losisa literally means shouldn't carry Hashem Elokecha, the Hashem's name, in vain. That when who we are as human beings, we have a neshama. Our neshama is a part of Hashem. It represents Hashem. Some people say a pasuk at Va'aneni at the end of Shemona Esrei, and the reason for that is because each unique neshama has unique connection to Hashem, and those psukim are all different psukim, mostly describing Kadosh Baruch Hu, describing God. And so what we're saying is losisa Hashem Elokecha Hashem. A person shouldn't carry this name of God for no reason. Whenever we do something which is a chil Hashem, then we are carrying the name of Hashem for no reason. It's like the same idea of an oath. An oath is we're taking God's name in vain. And similarly, when we make a chil Hashem, we are also desecrating Hashem's name because we, as humans, are representations of Hashem in the world. Okay, so all those things are connected. And now we're going to bring psukim proving the terrible punishment that happens for such people. Shneimar, as it says, if with these you will not be sivasru from the word musr, you'll not get musr, you'll not be rebuked. I'll take be'ela, don't say be'ela, which means these, ela be'ala, because of oaths, because of false oaths, or vain oaths. And it says over there, the psukim over there describe that there's going to be the wild animals, etc. And similarly, it says by Shua Shakar, don't swear falsely by my name, and you will desecrate Hashem's name. And it says by Shechil Hashem, don't desecrate my name, my holy name. Those who disgrace it will die. So we learn the same term chilul, which is used by Shabbos, which is used by Chil Hashem. It's connected to Shavuos, and that's what the psukim in the Tocha say. Really, ba'ala, if you sin with oaths, then these things will happen. Okay, bavon shvichas dam, because of murder, Beis Hamikdash charev, the Beis Hamikdash will be destroyed. U'shchina misdakas b'Yisrael, and the Shechina will leave Yisrael. Shenemar, as it says, v'losachanifu, you shall not bring guilt. And the end of the pasuk, it's not quoted over here, but it means you should not bring guilt by spilling blood. And then the pasuk continues, because if you do, you will contaminate the land, which I am living in it. So what's the implication of the pasuk? As long as you don't bring blood of bloodshed, then I will be there. But if you contaminate it through murder, I will not be able to dwell there. You will not, you, the Jewish people, will not be able to dwell there, and I, Hashem, will not dwell there either. So you are going to be, the Shekhinah is going to leave, and you, the Jewish people, are going to be kicked out of the land. Avon rise for sexual immorality, v'avodas kachavim, and idolatry, v'ashmatos, shmitin, v'yovlos, and not keeping shmita or yovel. Galus bala olam, exile comes to the world, and megalin osan, and people come and kick the people out, kick the Jewish people out of, and other nations come and live in the land. Shneimar, as it says, we're going to read this, next time we read it from the Torah, that these abominations that were done by the nations of Canaan, they contaminated the land. And it says, and the land became contaminated. And Hashem says, I remember the sins. And basically Hashem said, I'm kicking them out. And also it says later there, you keep all these laws. Why? Because if you don't, then the land will, saki is like from the word vomit. The land will vomit you out. So we see that these sins, the sins of Gilui Arayos, of sexual immorality, causes people to be exiled from the land, both Jew and non-Jew. Sexual morality and the land of Israel are inconsistent. Water and oil, they cannot be together. Regarding idolatry, it says, I will put your carcasses, you, the Jewish people's carcasses, on the idols themselves. And it says after that, I'll make your Beis Hamikdash desolate. And I'll scatter you among the nations. You see, from Avodah Zarah, then the Shekhinah is going to be taken out, and you, the Jewish people, will be taken out of the land. But regarding Shemitah and Yovel, it says, the land will be appeased for its Shemitas, for all the years of its desolation. While you are in the land of your enemies, and it says, all the years of its desolation, it will rest. So we see from there, Torah says this explicitly, that the reason the Jewish people were kicked out of the land of Israel is because they didn't keep Shemitah, and while the Jews were in exile, then the land, so to speak, caught up for the missing Shemitahs. Okay, Bavon Navos Peh, for speaking inappropriately, using our mouths to use foul language, to curse, to all these things, that is nivel pet. Tsaros rabos, xeris kashos mischachos, terrible. Calamities increase, harsh decrees originate, ovachuri certain Yisrael basim, and young Jews die. Yisom v'almanas toakim ve'enam danim, and orphans and widows cry out, they're not answered. Shenemar, as it says, Laken al bachura v'yismach Hashem. Hashem will not rejoice over his young ones. In other words, they're not going to be alive. Hashem will kill the young ones. V'ez yisom v'es almanos of leirachim. Hashem will not have compassion on the orphans and widows. Ki chulo chanef u'meira. For all of them are hypocrites and evildoers. V'chol peds over nevala. Every mouth speaks Nivel peh. Despite all this, Hashem's anger does not turn away. Hashem's hand is still outstretched. Before we come back and explain those last words, but what's the idea of nivel peh and almana and yisomim not being responded to? So the idea of responding to a yasam and almana is like basic human decency. Like any human being, you see someone who is in need, you respond to them. It's a basic thing. It's basic decency of a human being. But a person who uses nivel peh, what that does, explains the Maharal, is that they basically are demonstrating that they don't have the dignified element of a human being, right? The uncle, the Targum uncle says, when it says that Hashem put a spirit in us, he says ruach mamala, means a spirit of speech. When a person abuses their speech, then that means they don't see themselves as a dignified human being, and therefore the compassion needed, the basic element of what it means to be human, is to be caring and compassionate to those around us. The Yasman Almana will cry out, but it'll be a society where no one will hear them, because we're a society which do not take ourselves seriously as human beings. We don't see the value, the dignity of a human being, and in such a society, we don't care for those who are in need either. That's what the Maharal understands this, but let's get to the end of the pasuk. What does it mean that the person's hand is still outstretched? Everyone knows why a bride goes into the chuppah. Everyone knows what happens at a marriage, at the end of the marriage. Okay, but if you speak it out, in other words, it's not new information, but saying it, using your mouth, contaminating your mouth, is degrading. Okay, as someone who does this, even if they had 70 years of goodness, which was decreed to them in heaven, Hochlin alav l'ra, it gets reversed, it gets upside down, it gets turned upside down for evil, right? So nivel peh is not a small thing. Gehenim is deepened for such a person. A deep pit is for the pizaros, a mouth which speaks strangely, understood to be nivel peh. Even the person who listens, a person who is there while people use obscene language and they don't protest, they don't walk away, they just let themselves listen, we're also impacted. It also degrades us, also takes away from our humanity. And therefore it says that there is a person there in that pasuk who's not the person who is being menavel peh, not the person who's speaking incorrectly, and that person also, Hashem is angry at them. That person also is punished by Gehenim. It's just simply listening. It impacts us. It impacts us. The things we hear, the movies we watch, the music we listen to, it impacts us. It has a real difference. We really have to recognize that it degrades us. It takes away from our sense of who we are by allowing ourselves to be exposed to such things. Amrav Oshia, anyone who clears their schedule for averas. What does that mean? That means that there's two types of sins. Sometimes we sin, we make a mistake, we do the wrong thing. We're trying not to, whatever. We don't think, and it just happens. Fine, it's bad. But a person who goes out and schedules their sin, like, okay, at 10 o'clock tomorrow, I'm going to go and do this. Whoa, that's a whole new level. That is terrible. Chaburos v'tzan yotzim bo, welts, wounds break out on the person's body. Shemar, as it says, chaburos petza tamruk bara. Injuries, wounds, accompany a person who purchased themselves for evil. In other words, a person, tamruk, from the word rake. They set aside, they clear their schedule for bad. Lo od elish nidam hidrokin. They get hidrokin. Now we're going to go on a whole long tangent about these different types of unique forms of death. Hidrokin is one of them, which is a stomach ailment. Shemar, as it says, umakos chadre vaten. Regarding this person, they have the ailments of the inner parts of the stomach, okay? Amar Nachman Yitzchak, simila vera hidrokin. A person who has a hidrokin, that is a reflection of the fact that they are a bal avera. Avera, whenever Chazal say avera, they mean sexual immorality, okay? Tzon Rabbanan. Says Chazal, there are three different types of hidrokin. Shel avera ava, a person who gets hidrokin because of sexual sin, their skin by their stomach becomes thick. Vishal rav tapuach, but if a person gets it, the person can also get a hidrokin because they fast. So that's that you see swelling in the stomach. Vishal kshafim dak, and a person who gets hidrokin because of sorcery, they have appears with thin skin, not thick skin. Okay, here we have some Gemaras which are really coming to the end of this whole Gemara, and here it really goes back to a point that I was trying to make earlier, and that is that when we see people with these sins, what should be our reaction? Okay, so Shmuel HaKatan Chashbei. Shmuel HaKatan had a drikon. Amar, he said, Rebbeinu Shalom, Master of the universe, me, Mephis. Who's going to Mephis is like, who's going to make a lottery to see which one of the drokins do I have? Like, why do I have it? Because I fast, because I am a sinner, because I'm shafim. Like, no one's going to know, and people are going to think I'm a terrible guy. Shmuel's not, Shmuel was agitated over that. Itase, so Hashem healed him. Hashem recognized that people are going to judge him, and therefore Hashem healed him. But you see, first of all, that there's a whole bunch of reasons why a person could have this type of thing. Okay, here's an even greater story, I think. Abai Chashbei, Abai had hidrokin. Rava got up. Everyone's talking about Abai. Everyone's like, Abai got hidrokin. Must be, whatever, etc. Rava got up. He said, Dana Bebe Nachmani. I know about Nachmani. His name is Abai, his father's name is Nachman. His adopted father's name is Nachman. He was therefore known as Nachmani. Demach ben Nafshe. I know that he starves himself. He fasts. And hidrokin, as we saw earlier, is also caused by someone who fasts. So Rava went along and wanted to ensure that, again, as I mentioned the other day, it's not the purpose of these Gemara is not to accuse people and say, this person has it, must be they're a sinner, right? No, it's to be reflective, it's to be retrospective. When a person has a punishment, when a person's sick, they should ask themselves, what did I do wrong? Not what did that person do wrong. That's usually not so useful. So over here, Rava is coming along and he's afraid people are going to start accusing Abaye, and that's what's happening. So he says, don't worry, there's other reasons to get Hadrukin, right? In other words, it's not meant to be accused. Their justifications are other reasons. Okay, Rava Chashbe. Rava also got Hadrokin. Okay, so the Gemara says about Rava Huda Amar Nefishe Ketile Kadar Minfiche Kafan. The more die by the pots. By the pots is a reference to bowel movements, or than those who are swelled through hunger. So what does this mean? The pots is as follows: the Hadrikon that's caused there's Hadrikon which is caused by stomach issues, and what it's caused by is people holding back from going to the restroom. So Rava once proclaimed that more people die because of Hadrikon of the stomach than they die by famine. So what the Gemara is asking is, Rava knows about this ailment. Like, why didn't he take care of himself? Why didn't he go to the bathroom more often? So he wouldn't have a drikon. Like, if Rava's knowledgeable about it, how can it happen that he has a drikon? So, which is caused by a person not leaving himself. So Shani Rava to ansi le rabbanan bidane baal korche, that the students would be following him along. You ever see like a rav or a rabbi who has like so many followers? He has no second to breathe. He's constantly chased around. Everyone's bothering him, not bothering him, chas v'shalom, but they're constantly running around with him, and therefore Rava over here, he knew that yes, he's supposed to go to the restroom. He knew that it's dangerous not to go to the restroom, and there's actually a isser d'Rabbanan of losat shaktu, balta shaktu. You should not make yourself disgusting. You should not hold on to waste, even before, not about davening, just in general. You should not hold on to waste. It's dangerous and it's disgusting. A person should relieve themselves whenever they feel the need to do so, and it's dangerous not to. But we learn from this Gemara, and it's brought down halacha l'maisa. The Mishnah Berurah brings this down, and other poskim, and that is that if a person has to hold back because they're teaching Torah, or the masses need them, and that's where they're holding back, that would overrides the D'Rabbanan. So again, a person should always go to the restroom, but if the masses need them, and that's where they have to hold themselves back, that is mutter in that case, and Hashem will watch over them because of the schus of the rabbin. Son Rabbanan, Abba Simanim Haim, there are 4 indicators, there are 4 simanim, symbols, the person doing something wrong. You see what he means? Siman avera hodrikon. If it's avera, i.e. sexual sin, that's hodrikon. Similarly, sinaschinam yirakon. Jaundice is caused by hatred, sinas chinam. Similarly, gasa ruach anius. A person who is arrogant is also not knowledgeable. Okay, so it's not an ailment, but not knowledgeable. What's going on over here? So Rashi explains, this is the way Rashi understands this, and that is that when a person is arrogant, some of the people who I know are the most knowledgeable people are not such brilliant people. They're actually very humble people who work diligently. Some of the people who are very bright end up not knowing so much because they rely on their intellect, their quickness, and therefore they don't bother applying themselves. And that's what we're saying over here. You see someone who doesn't know a lot, you have to worry that maybe this person is arrogant because the reason they don't know so much is because they just relied on their quick brain, but that's obviously not what we're meant to do. Similar Lashon Hara, Askara. The sign for Lashon Hara is Askara. Okay, well, Askara is a type of throat and mouth type of death, where it's supposed to be a very gruesome death, where a person basically chokes and dies. It's not like they choke on something, but basically they can't breathe and they die. It's a very, very gruesome death, and it's caused by Lashon Hara. Tanar Banan, Askara Bala Olam, Askara comes to the world. We are now on Lama Gimel Lama Beis, Ala Meiser. For people not doing Meiser properly, Rabbi Yossi Amar Al Lashon Hara comes because of Lashon Hara. Amar Rava, Bitem Rabbi Shimon Levi. Ma'ikra, what's the pasuk that teaches us that it comes from Lashon Hara? V'melech Yisrach Belakim. The pasuk until him says that the king will be happy with Hashem. Yishal kol nishba bo, glorified of everyone who swears honestly with Hashem's name. Ki Yisachar pi dovrei shaker, and the mouth of liars will be. Yisachar means like to be stopped up, but Yisachar, the word is Sachar, from the word Askara. So the person will be stopped up with Askara, right? David HaMelech is the author over here. David HaMelech was really damaged tremendously by people who were Baalei Lashon Hara. They caused an incredible amount of hardship. Ibailahu, they have a question. Rav Lazar, Rav Yossi, that the Rav Lazar, Rav Yossi said that it's Lashon Hara that causes this thing. Lashon Hara ka'amar, was it for Lashon Hara? Idima afa Lashon Hara nami ka'amar, was it also for Lashon Hara? That is the question, and we will, God willing, come back to this tomorrow. Have a great day. Good luck.